Hi folks, and welcome back to the Westvaco Industrial Railway. The purpose of this video is either it's going to become a standalone video or it's going to be supplementary to another video that talks about what I call the boxcar job. And basically this is part of my operations test series to determine feasibility and other points dealing with different operating scenarios to eventually come up with a plan that operators will enjoy and actually want to come and operate my layout for. This video is going to deal specifically with filling numerous boxcars with finished paper products. That operation takes place, let me find my pointer, I'll use a rail. That operation takes place in this building here, which is the shipping building. Note it's shipping, not shipping and receiving, because it doesn't receive anything. It simply ships out finished rolls of paper. I also need to, this is one of my project sheets that I can put aside. Some of the operational interest or annoyances, depending on your point of view, that I designed into this was, you'll see that first of all, this being the main line, and then the 3 yard tracks here. In order to reach the spur for the shipping building, you have to come off of the main line here, and then come into the furthest out of these 2 industrial sidings, so that would be this one here, and a forward again maneuver. Whoops, I keep bumping into things because I'm looking at the camera instead of my finger. And then push the boxcars into the building to be loaded. At the moment, this building is only large enough to fill 2 boxcars at a time, with part of each boxcar sticking out from either end of the building. However, that project panel that I just carried off is to expand this building, because you'll see where can get my pointer, where the track comes out of the rear of the building, it creates a curve and then dead ends right there. What I want to do is enclose this entire thing in the same sort of corrugated steel structure as the original shipping building. So that additional section will allow for a 3rd boxcar to be loaded at the same time, with all the boxcars sheltered by the building. And that's an important detail, really, for the model railroad, because it is finished paper. If it gets damp or wet, it could take damage and end up being rejected by the purchaser. One of the other curious things is, you can barely see it because of the brown paint, but this indentation here is representative. It goes under this. Here I go knocking things over. It goes under this deck girder bridge here, or plate girder bridge, whatever it's called, and will eventually flow through the arches of this stone viaduct. That's another part of the Potomac River, which is also modeled over on that end of the railroad. So if you can imagine it snaking off layout from here to over there. However, in order to accommodate this track, what I've done is I've designed basically like a culvert. There's a name for it, I can't remember. But the river would be flowing through this concrete structure here. The river's not deep at all at this point, probably no more than 12 inches at the center. It would easily, its flow normally would fit under there, flooding concerns notwithstanding. But at any rate, that's just an aside about a modeling feature when this whole area is finished. So right now, in terms of boxcars, and I forgot to add, these boxcars are not for shipping paper. These are for bringing various goods into this building of the factory. So they're not relevant to the specific task of tonight's video. However, I may end up removing those and switching them out just as another task to add interest to the operation. So what the operator, which is going to be me, will have to do is first of all clear this track, because they'll have to back in with the locomotive pulling the cars, and then push the cars and locomotive into the building, or else the locomotive will become trapped. And as you can see, there's a train on that track already. In a normal operating session, this train, which is a dry chemical train full of covered hopper cars, would be handled by another operator, separate from the operator who will be handling this train full of boxcars. And they would have to coordinate on clearing that track out to allow for the switching maneuvers for the boxcars. In order to expedite this video, since the chemical operation is not relevant to what I'm trying to experiment with here tonight, I'm just going to pull these cars out and put them in storage somewhere in the yard, which in and of itself is going to be a challenge. The second track, which is containing boxcars, is normally used for coal loads, and the coal dump building is missing right now, but it normally sits about right there. And during any operating session, it's almost guaranteed to be filled with coal cars being unloaded, because the layout, at least in my current operations plan, will pretty much constantly be receiving coal trains in order to power that power plant, which then powers the remainder of the factory. So there are two coal cars there, which shorten this track and makes it a little bit less usable, I guess, for the maneuvers here today. Also, for the sake of brevity, I'm only going to do one of these two strings of cars, and I think it's going to be this train, because this would be most representative of what an operator would actually get, which is a string of cars that's in the yard, not on an industrial siding. So I'll just leave these cars here and pretend like they're coal cars, whatever you want to do, and we'll just load up these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cars. The other thing for this experimental session is to imagine that this wall that I was just discussing is built so that 3 cars can actually be filled at a time here. And actually, if that goes quickly, then I may end up filling these cars as well. We'll see how it goes. At any rate, there's also a string of liquid chemical cars here that are in the yard. These have been emptied in the chemical unloading facility, which is back there with that yellow scaffold, or not scaffolding, that yellow, what would you call it, decking, whatever, is, and been assembled here to go on an outbound train. If required, because of the limited yard space and the need to have runaround space, these cars can be put back on those tracks. However, you'll also note that 2 of those tracks are currently occupied, one by cabooses, the other by 3 locomotives. One of these locomotives, this GP40-2, will become our switch locomotive for the boxcar operation, and that only leaves this track here, which might fit 4 of these 5 cars, and then maybe the 5th one here. So I'll have to experiment with that if it comes up. I don't know if it will yet. As with all of these other videos, I'm making this up in my head as I go along. I've not planned anything out. I don't use car cards, nor do I use waybills. The reason I don't use waybills is I largely don't yet fully understand how they work, and that may be something I add in the future, perhaps the near future. And car cards are more for, at least in my mind, more for a long distance train, than for a local switching duty like this. And it's pretty obvious for this section of this layout, which is a factory with tracks for each specific aspect of the industry, such as dry chemicals, wet chemicals, finished paper, coal, etc. That it's rather obvious, and car cards I don't think would be a very useful addition anyway. So I'm going to just do it from my head, and I'm going to do this handheld, so there might be some shaky video, but I think the handheld videos are a little bit more fun to watch. So I'll have one hand holding the camera and the other holding the throttle. And with that said, let's get started by firing up my old school DCS 50 Digitrax Zephyr. And my also old school, where'd it go? DT400R throttle. Very out of date these days, but it works just fine for me. Okay, and now stop narrating now and just start working and go from there. So, switches are lined except for this one. There are a few electrical gremlins that I discovered last night, and the layout's been sitting for a while, so it's very dusty and the track needs cleaning, so this will happen probably frequently. Okay. Here's my thought process. I need to get these cars out of the way for the duration of the switching session. I am not supposed to block the main line for any longer than it takes to do relatively short operations. If I park those chemical cars on this yard track, I lose the ability to run around the train. I also lose the ability to switch into the tracks that lead to the chemical unloading facility. So based on what I was just stating a few moments ago, I think I'm going to put these tank cars back in the unloading facility and get them out of the way and free up that track for other work. Okay, and down here. Need to switch this guy. He's already switched. I'm gonna pull this out. These are styrene inserts to go between the rails for representing the rails embedded in concrete. They're actually from a Walters kit. I think they call it their street running kit. And they look good, they fit well, I just haven't glued them down yet. And per the operating rules, I have to ring the bell anytime cars or locomotives are entering or exiting or moving around that concrete pad. Oops. Caught on something. This facility is still under construction. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and remove this part of the structure until we're finished with the work here. Okay, slight disruption there. I filmed the entire second part of this video doing the actual switching job before I realized that my camera was complaining that the memory was full and none of it recorded. This now marks probably the 5th time that I've attempted to make this video. So here's the second part where I actually do the switching work. The building that I was talking about earlier, you'll notice, is now in place. In fact, I'll turn them on in a moment. It has lights and an interior and everything. It's pretty slick. But I think I have managed to put everything back where it was for the previous part of this video. So to recap, before the memory ran out, I had put the tank cars here in the wet chemical unloading facility. We had 6 box cars on this cut right here. So 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that's reproduced. We had box cars and 2 coal cars, or I'm sorry, 3 coal cars, coal hoppers on the industrial spur here. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 box cars, and then back here on the second industrial, well, if you're going by the actual number, that will be industrial spur number 1, next to the digester building. It has a string of dry chemical hoppers which need to be moved to accommodate everything. So I believe, I need to go back and review the video, but I believe this was the original setup, plus the 2 box cars on that small spur, which I again have yet to decide whether that's going to be switched out in this scenario or not. Just some small updates. You'll see that again I have finished the paper loading facility. That third track is now enclosed. It's kind of dark in there, but there's a complete dock interior that I built with rolls of paper, which are actually made out of desiccant canisters. They come in like bottles of Advil and things like that that I've been collecting over the years. I also got some work done on the town. It's looking pretty slick. Here is the passenger station. Scratch build. I think it looks pretty good. These 3 are kit built. Design preservation models buildings. One is a bakery and flour processing plant on the ground floor, bakery on the second floor, residences on the 3rd and 4th. The second one probably won't show up in this video, but it is sort of the shopping center of the town, and yeah, it's not going to show in the video, but I came up with some clever names for the shops. The 3rd is a boarding house, then the 3 houses on the hill, plus the large mansion of the owner, well, president, I should say, of the mill. It's a corporation. That may be switched out eventually, I don't know, but at any rate, remember that all this will be backed by a mirror, and actually on the reverse side of these 3 buildings, they're painted differently and marked differently, so they'll show up in the mirror as completely separate buildings on the next street over behind these. And what's missing right here, because I'm still working on it, where that white pad is an Art Deco movie theater. The white pads will be painted concrete when this is all done. The black streets will be paved with the Woodland Scenics paving material with appropriate markings and parking spaces and, so on and so forth. So there's another view. There's the town, and then right here, where that white pad meets the concrete pad, there'll be a fence, and that will be one of the major employee foot entrances into the plant. So there'll be a gate there, and so you can drive vehicles onto this pad where that blue van is, and access the various buildings throughout the mill. So that's been updated since I shot the original video. Otherwise, everything's about the same. Once again, I believe all the cars are in the same place as they were in the previous section of the video, and stand by, and I will begin to actually conduct the switching job. Well, continue, since we already switched those tank cars over here to the chemical facility. Now it's time to deal with the dry chemical hoppers and then the actual box cars themselves. So let's get to it. One other quick note. Santa brought me a Woodland Scenics static grass applicator. Quite a nice device. I'm totally a novice in how to use it. This is my first attempt to do so. I'm very unhappy with it. It looks more like a bunch of fuzz than it does tall growing grass. But, I'm learning. That's why I chose a rather small section to try it out on. My next section will be along, let me put this down, along this hillside here, where the main road goes into town, and sort of blends in, but behind these empty pulpwood cars, there's another very steep hill that I want to put very tall, the 7mm grass on. So that's going to be the next area I tackle. Maybe I'll get my technique finalized. But at any rate, that has nothing to do with switching box cars. I just wanted to point it out.